Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky. Super excited tonight to welcome to the show award-winning author Michael Thompson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm excited to have you, man. I've been following you on Instagram for quite a long time, and this is the first time we've ever met, but I feel like I know you. Is that
Thank you.
is that weird?
No, it's not weird. That's the nature of the internet.
100%.
It's pretty
Obviously,
cool.
we post stuff all the time. I'm sure you see my stuff. I see your stuff all the
Definitely,
time.
yes.
So I feel like I know you, man. I probably know you more than some of my family, and we've we're only meeting for the first time. So what part of the US are you in? West Virginia, is that
I'm
correct?
in Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia. Ah,
Yep.
there we go. Awesome, man. And you are, as I said, award-winning author. You write about cryptids, superheroes, alternative worlds, all the stuff that we love at Let's Get Freaky.
That's right. Yep.
Can you tell us a little about your books and where it all started for you?
Oh, sure. I've been writing since I was 13 years old, writing and publishing since I was 13 years old. That's when my Chicken Boy series came out, which is about a chicken who eats radioactive birdseed and becomes a superhero, and he
Oh,
and his pals
wow.
save the world from monsters and mad scientists. The latest one in the series came out a couple years back. We got Chicken Boy and the Might of the Monkey Man here, and I do all the illustrations too.
Oh,
I write and
wow.
illustrate everything. Um, and after that, I moved on to novels, like World of the Orb. That's my alternate world fantasy adventure about two best friends on a field trip to the Museum of Natural History. They sneak away from the group and break the one rule, which is not to go in the artifact room and definitely not to touch the orb. And when they do, they're zapped and cast headlong into an alternate world of monsters, myths, and magic that sets them on an epic treasure hunt across these strange lands to find Earth again. Combines mythology and some of my own world building stuff in there. Super fun adventure, very magical. And then as far as the cryptid goes, my latest series is the Winslow Hoffner series. That's my current going series. This is about a fisherman who sees cryptids on his voyages, a folkloric fantasy on the high seas.
Oh, that's so
Cryptids, sea
cool.
monsters, epic urban legends that few have beheld, but there's one man who happens to have seen them all. The gallant fisherman, Mr. Winslow Hoffner. And he's regaling his tales of adventure to a couple of journalists who discover their small harbor towns harboring incredible secrets. And I do all the artwork here too. I do all the artwork across all the books.
Oh, man, that is wild. That is amazing artwork, man.
Thank you. This is the latest one, Winslow Hoffner's High Sailing Adventures. So this is my book that just came out, and it's simultaneously a sequel and a prequel. We kind of dive into our titular character's past and discover how his amazing adventures with all these cool beasts of legend all began.
Oh, I love it, man. Love it.
Thank
I'm
you.
on it. I am on that for sure, man. I've got to be honest, because I love reading. I grew up loving reading. The Goosebumps books for me was
Yeah,
massive
I've got
part
an
of my
R.L.
life.
Stine autograph back there. I love
Oh,
Russell. Yeah,
wow. Oh, he's a legend, man. Oh, wow. That
I
that was
actually
one of the
got Tim Jacobus did an original sketch. He's selling original sketches on his website. He's
oh
the
man.
original artist from the covers, those
Oh,
fantastic covers.
wow.
I got him
Yeah.
for, and of course I had to get the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena because
Oh,
scripted, and that's just such a great cover. So
man, Goosebumps, like that was I've always loved paranormal, but
yeah.
that was just when I've actually got somewhere in this room a big pile of Goosebumps books from my
Mhm.
childhood. I passed them on to my kids because I said, you got to read this. I used to watch the series,
Yeah.
man. And the artwork, as you just said, was that's why I bought a lot of the books
Oh,
because I
it
love
made
the
them so
artwork.
collectible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a stack of mine in this closet over here. So
Oh, man.
I'm planning to do the same thing, pass it on.
Yeah,
Those are
100%,
great
man.
books.
Especially for kids, like the artwork is like that's what gets you first. I know my daughter, like she loves, she sees the artwork on a book, and it's that's the oh
Yeah, it draws you in. Yeah,
yeah,
activates your
100%.
imagination
Yeah,
for sure.
man, that's cool that you've got his autograph as well. R.L. Stein, what a
Yeah,
legend,
I
man.
almost met him at the National Book Festival. I was the next person in line, and then they shut the line off.
Oh,
So then I wrote him, and that's how I got the autograph. So
oh,
which is
how
kind of cool.
nice
So I
is
didn't get
that?
an autographed book, but I got an autographed picture,
Yeah, how nice is
which
that,
is
man?
actually even cooler because I was been building this autograph wall for a while, and so that's
Yeah,
pretty.
that's wild, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, because my New Year's resolution this year, at the start of the year, I was like, I'm going to read more books because
Hmm.
I've talked to so many amazing people that write so many amazing books, and I like to get the books as well. And I've just got a big stack of books that I've not read yet. I just don't get the time, but I love reading. I know I need to make more time. I think I've read one book so far this year, which is really bad. I need to read more. But I'm gonna get your books, man. That is for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
100%. So
Awesome.
what got you into, because obviously cryptids and the magical side. What was the attraction there?
Ooh, I have been interested in cryptids for a long time, ever since I was a little kid. Back in the day, I don't know if you remember the game Spore, where you could like sculpt like creatures and stuff. Um,
Ah, I remember it.
there was this cool game called Spore, and I was that's where I was like I was sculpting all these creatures. You could create your own, but I was making cryptids and stuff even back then, and I was always fascinated with folklore and legends, and that was sort of one of my foundational interests. So around the time that I was writing the what would become the first chapter of the first Winslow Hoffner book, I was in high school, and I had an assignment to write a short story. A while before that, I had this single line that sort of popped into my head out of nowhere. And when I write stories, it usually comes through as a foundational image or a foundational line. And for Winslow, it was that line of dialogue, which was, "Have you ever stared straight into the eyes of death and scoffed?" And it came through just like that. And I thought, ooh, that's pretty cool. I wonder who's
Wow.
talking. So I put that, I typed that into a document and I set it away for a while. And then when I got that assignment, I opened that page back up and I thought, okay, let's figure out who's talking. That was the first line of the story. And I thought, okay,
Wow.
it sounds like a fisherman, it sounds like a man of the sea, has that dialect. And all the Winslow books are written phonetically with the dialogue, so the accents are of each of the characters are sort of baked into how it's written. Um, and so I decided, okay, and what are the eyes of death? What is he referring to? Well, it couldn't be a fish, it couldn't be even a shark that's not scary enough or interesting enough. And so I thought my foundational interest in cryptozoology came back, bubbled back to my mind, and I thought, ooh, okay, what if we did a cryptid sea story? And I remembered the legend of Gambo, which was an unidentified creature that washed ashore in the Gambia in 1983. And I really liked the name. It was a strong sounding name. And I went back into my research and I looked it up. And it was this really strange prehistoric looking creature, um, 15 feet long, 80 conical teeth. Um, and it looked like either like a mosasaur or a relict prehistoric dolphin of some kind. But before anyone had a chance to properly scientifically document it, it was chopped up and buried in the sand. The head was said to have been sold to a tourist, and it just completely disappeared. All
Oh
of
man.
all of the efforts to relocate it were not fruitful. And so I thought, this is perfect because there's so much mystery about it. I can do whatever I want with it. And I decided to interpret it as a fire-breathing fish and do some speculative biology. When I write a story, I like to start out with the most unbelievable concept possible and then go out of my way to like make it believable. Because if I can convince myself that such a fantastical creature exists, then I think I can convey that to the reader as well.
Yeah.
And, and so that's sort of how it began.
Wow, man. That's all. So you say that first sentence that you got there, that just came to you. That was like a download. That was like
Yeah,
since
yeah. That's kind of how a lot of these stories go. In the middle of the book, it happened as well. I had just finished writing. There's a chapter in the book where Winslow in his past had encountered the beast of Busco in Churubusco, Indiana. And I was going to move on to the next part of the book, but I had a shower inspiration, and I saw this image in my mind of a gigantic sandbar-sized lobster crashing through the waves with Winslow and his first mate Hank hanging on to dear life, in the segments of its huge shell. And I thought, okay, this is cool. So sometimes when I get that image, when I'm writing these cryptid stories, I then do my research in hopes to discover a cryptid that might match that image. And there's not a
interesting.
whole lot of giant crustaceous cryptids. There's some, but nothing that exactly matched what I was looking for. There was the polypus on the 1500s map, the Carta Marina, which is like my favorite sea monster map ever. I think I actually have it. Oh yeah, I just have
Oh
it.
wow.
I just framed this. Yeah, so I got this right here.
Oh man, that's
Let's see if we
wild.
can find the polypus here.
So where does that map originate?
This is by there he is. He's right there. You see him.
Oh,
And he's
yes,
holding a man in his
yes.
claws, so you can see the scale of it. This is
Wow.
by Olaus Magnus, and so this is a 1500s vintage sea map, and it's full of monsters. And
Wow, man.
these sorts of things were what really ignited my imagination as a kid. They've got these great classic old interpretation of whales that have the sort of double blowholes,
Yeah,
and see that and tusks. And so we actually have one of those in the Winslow Hoffner series, mentioned briefly in the first, and then we get a full proper adventure in the second one.
that's
Um,
awesome, man.
but I remember the polypus from there, but I don't know, it didn't seem snappy enough, and I wanted something more current. When I write these stories, I like to have what I call a real world tether, so that as you're reading them, there's these dates and situations and little moments in history that are dropped um, within the discussions of the characters, so that it kind of creates this like living mythos with the real world. And so I thought, okay, where was the largest lobster ever caught, scooped up? And as it turns out, it was caught in exactly the place where the book takes place in Nova Scotia.
No way.
Yes, and so in the 70s, and it was a whopper. It was like, 44 pounds or something. And there's rumors of them getting even bigger, unofficial measurements where they're even bigger. And that's one of those creatures that can just grow and grow. And so I thought, okay, well, it's had a few decades now. Let's just be exponential and get creative with it. And so we have a sandbar sized lobster in the chapter called "It Weren't No Sandbar." And so,
That's wild, man. That's what's so amazing about our seas, our oceans,
mm,
because there is, without a shadow of doubt in my mind, so much out there that we've undiscovered yet. Can you imagine the things that are out there that we haven't found yet? Like, there must
exactly.
be so much.
The ocean itself, as well as cryptids, are kind of evocative of the unknown,
Hmm.
uh, which is what I like to explore in these books. And
Yeah,
the ocean is a perfect environment to house and hide things of these gargantuan sizes. And
yeah.
so it's cool to imagine what might be out there.
100%, man. Because they say, what is it? They say, whoever they are, that it's 20% of our ocean that we know. And
Right.
that's, I don't know if that's still the case, but they say we
Hmm.
only know what's in 20% of our ocean. I've heard that somewhere. That might be wrong.
And there's always new species discovered all the time.
100%.
Truly mind-blowing things in the
Yeah,
deepest parts of the
yeah,
ocean.
yeah, man. I like to think there's underwater worlds, mermaids, and all sorts under there, man. I really do.
Definitely.
They do say NASA studied the ocean and was like, no, they again said that. We're not going to go there. But man, I find it wild that you got these images just come to you out of. Would you say it's just like it's just an image out of nowhere, and you're like, that's it, and I'm going with
Yeah.
that, and then
It's like a lightning strike of inspiration.
yeah,
That was the case with World of the Orb. My first image in that one it was also a seafaring image. I think I like the sea a lot. And I was like 9 or 10 years old when I got the first inspiration for World of the Orb, and that was this scene with a massive sort of sea serpent monster called the Cracor. And I didn't know what it was called at the time that the image came through, but it was like this half reptile, half fish, truly massive thing, a leviathan, the biggest creature in the world, chasing this tiny boat, and its sail had split in two, and there were like little shadows of people on the boat, like scrambling to do their best, and it was roaring out of the water, sort of twisting onto its side, and then falling like a whale would, and then sending that tiny boat cascading upward. And I thought, who's on the boat? And so that was how World of the Orb started. And that was the
that's
exact
so
center
cool.
point of the book. So everything sort of spiraled out from there.
That's awesome. So that's your starting point, and then you can build around it. That's
Yeah,
awesome, man. And
exactly.
you get an image, and then you look into it, and then you find that it's out there. There's been something that's been seen in lore and legend.
For the Winslow Hoffner series, yes. For World of the Orb, that was just totally my inspiration. Of course, it was, based on, classic like myths like the Leviathan and stuff, but it there was a little bit more creative license with that. With the Winslow Hoffner series, that one's all based on folklore. I always find a real world tether
Mhm.
uh to come upon these things. Like we had this little creature here. This is a very specific one. Um the Skellia crimsley, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's an Icelandic creature. Its name means shell monster. In the book, it's referred to sometimes as an Icelandic sea wolf. And I saw there was a scene. Well, I guess I shouldn't spoil it, but there was a scene with a bunch of those creatures in a high intensity moment in the novel, and that came to my mind, and I thought, okay, that's a really specific. I had to do some deep research to find something aquatic, mammalian, and shelled,
Yeah.
and eventually I found the Skellia crimsley, uh,
Wow.
and it's interpreted kind of like a shelled, semi-aquatic sloth a lot of times. If I'm remembering correctly. But I took sort of for my version, I took inspirations from like the Glyptodon and um like even like I gave it kind of like a Wolverine or like a badger-like face kind of, and
Yeah.
then club tail and then these nice long turtley like sort of paddlers.
That's so cool, man.
Um,
For anyone that can't see that are listening, the artwork is wild. You need to check it out because it is awesome, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, what is your difficult question? What is your favorite cryptid?
Ooh,
That
yeah,
is,
it's difficult. I love them all so much. Um, I always and this is a weird one, but well, it's not weird. It's weird because it's so traditional. I like the Puerto Rican chupacabra a lot. And the
yes,
reason I like it is because you can't immediately assign an animal to it. It looks partially alien, it looks partially like a gargoyle, it's got vampiric elements to it, and I just think it's fantastic.
yeah.
I had this commission. There's this great clay artist named Alex, and got this
Oh,
little guy.
wow, that's awesome, man.
I like it when they got the wings on there.
Yeah,
I like
because
that a
there's a
lot.
lot of different versions of the
There's so
chupacabra.
many versions, yeah.
Like
And
some
then their
people,
spines, they're great.
yeah, like some people will put a picture of a dog with mange, and they'll be like, "That's a chupacabra." There's so many different versions
Right,
of it.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome,
that's
man.
the Texas chupacabra is the more canid one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
mhm,
Well, that's what's what because obviously I've always been into the paranormal and obviously Bigfoot was the first sort of
right.
cryptid and Nessie as well. Of course, I'm in the
Yep.
UK, so Nessie, you grow up with Nessie. Nessie and Bigfoot are like they're always out there. Like whether you're into cryptids or not, you know about them. You know, like my dad who doesn't know anything about cryptids, he knows the Loch Ness monster. He knows Bigfoot. He thinks there's only one Bigfoot in America, and I'm like, Dad, no, that's not how it works, man. There's loads of them. You know, there's different types. Anyway, but there's when you really look into the cryptid, the legends, the lore, the myths, there's so many that there's so many. Like it's
Oh
endless.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's great. And I do have a love for the obscure ones.
Yeah.
Um and anything that is really, really strange and hard to identify. Like the Snallygaster is a fantastic one.
What's
Uh,
that, man?
oh, the Snallygaster. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a dragon. It's cyclopean. It has a single eye. It has a beak that's like metal. Um, and then it has like a tangle of tentacles that come out of its mouth. Uh, and so there's all kinds of great lore about it.
That's
Um,
freaky, man. That
its
sounds
its
very,
name came from German immigrants. They brought over their legend. They called it the Schnellergeist, which means fast spirit, and then eventually got sort of the word morphed into Snallygaster. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I find that
interesting.
fantastic.
Yeah. Interesting, man. So do you
Hmm.
think that there's still so many out there that you don't know about yet?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm always like I love learning about stuff I don't know yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Around the time when it came time to write Winslow 2, I came upon this creature which was new to me. This is called an Afonk. This is a Welsh cryptid, kind of more mythical.
Mhm.
Kind of goes back to medieval times,
Yeah.
and it's one of its typical depictions is a hybrid between a beaver and a crocodile. And so, and I just that was a creature that was asking to be Winslowified. for the Winslow Hoffner series, and I thought, okay, what could make this biologically feasible? Combining these aspects here. And so sometimes when I adapt a cryptid, I like to think of it purely in silhouette. And so I thought about I sort of just smoothed out the features in my mind, and I just thought about uh, what shadow that creature would cast, and I thought that looks like a big platypus. And so then I did some research, and I thought, is there any prehistoric ancestors to the platypus that I could at least base this on and imagine, my own branch of its family tree for? And indeed, there was
Oh,
uh,
wow.
called Obdurodon child. Now, previously, they thought this was a very recent discovery. This was in like 2013, if I'm remembering correctly, and they discovered a tooth. That's how they found out about it. They discovered tooth, so it had teeth, even, which
Wow.
and now it's not quite as elaborate as those that are arming the jaws of Percival, my Afonk on the shore here. But I was like, okay, there is biological precedent, so let's go crazy
That's
here.
wild. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's wild, man. I mean, there must be so much out there undiscovered yet that we just haven't, that we might never catch up with. But I mean, I love it, man.
Mhm.
How many books have you got in the series so far?
In the Winslow Hoffner series, there are two so far. Third
Hmm.
one's coming out pretty
Yes.
soon, and eventually there will be at least five in the main series.
Awesome, man. So you buy the books. I know you've got audio books as well.
Yeah, I've narrated my own audiobook,
That's cool.
which is available now on Kobo. Released that on Kobo, and it's available on other platforms as well. But
Awesome.
you can get to that on my website, michaelthompsonbooks.com, and there's a great trailer also on my YouTube channel where you can hear a sample of some of the great voices of the different characters.
Awesome. And do all the voices?
I do all the voices, yes.
Oh, wow, man. That's a
Yeah.
skill.
Thank you.
Wow. How many different voices? There must be a few different voices in there.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. We've got Winslow himself, which you heard a bit of.
Yeah.
There's Hank, his first mate, Giuseppe Scialpi, sort of the antagonist of the book, and so forth. There's a lot of characters.
Wow.
I try to give them each their own unique voice, their own unique character and accent, and bring them to life.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's really cool. You've written the book and you're also doing because you know the characters better than anyone, obviously. So the fact that you can portray it as you hear it,
Hmm.
that's cool, man. I might have to listen to the audiobooks as well. That
Yeah,
is for
yeah, definitely.
sure.
Thank you.
That's cool. So could this possibly be in the future, or you might already be thinking about it, but like a TV series or a film?
Hopefully. I'm definitely I've been asked that question before, and it's really fun to imagine it. I think it would make a great series,
Yeah,
and I think definitely a television series because it has that sort of creature of the week vibe, the way the chapters are sort of set up.
yeah.
And it's almost written like a script already because it's so dialogue driven. Your eyes just sort of glide down the page. The majority of the book is like 70% dialogue, and it's just characters talking back and forth. That's how most of the story is revealed, with
Mhm.
Winslow sitting there telling these stories. But in a television, in a visual sort of way, the adaptation that you could do would be very fun.
Yeah,
I talked about this on another show, uh, because we were talking about the same topic. And there's my second chapter in the book is one of my favorite stories that Winslow tells, is called The Trouble with Mermaids. And I think it would be neat to show that in a visual way because the characters are coming in with um a certain anticipation of what the mermaid is, and then when Winslow reveals what it is, it changes their perspective of the story. So you can sort of visually show uh their presumption, and then poof, change it when Winslow cuts him off. So
that's
there's
awesome.
there's this moment where Ken, who is this big force of skepticism in the book, he's the cook where a lot of the stories are told in this place called Keely's Bayside Eatery. And Ken is talking to Winslow, and he says, "Ho ho, Wins, now you've really shown your hand." And he's like, "What?" And Winslow's like, "What do you mean? It's the truth." He's like, "Come now, friend, do you honestly expect us to believe some pretty mermaid had the hots for you?" And Winslow's like, I never said she was pretty. We're talking about a flippin' fish girl, Keel. She was scaly, had to fin. Her hair was like seaweed, you know? And so if we
Man,
like,
that's awesome.
and if we like snap and then so visually you can imagine how funny that would be. We could have like almost a jump
Yeah,
scare if we cut to this overly fishy mermaid. And then later on there's this the whole reason Winslow's telling the story is there's this little girl who had a mermaid doll, and she had read his story in the paper of his encounter with a monster fish, and asked him if he ever saw mermaids. And so now she's scared, she's holding her doll, and then Winslow's like, you know, clearly she was breathtaking for what she was. We was just different species is all, you know. So and then we can snap to this like happy medium between like the classic mermaid and the
that's awesome,
overly
man.
fishy mermaid visually. So that would be a cool way to a cool opportunity that could only exist in a visual adaptation of it, you
Yeah,
know. So
100%.
I think that would be
I already know I'm gonna like the audiobook as well, man, because that you got some skills there, brother.
oh thank you.
That was like two. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Actor as well, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm seeing like this amazing animation film like at the moment.
Hmm.
That's the vision I'm getting.
Yeah,
Like,
that could be cool too. Yeah, animation,
oh
kinds of stuff you could achieve with that.
yeah,
Yeah, I would definitely. I'm open to all, you know, anyone who understands the story and the characters and has a really good idea. I'm excited to hear what that might be, because I think it would be fun. And I love film. I've been, you know, I've written, I've directed, you know, some short films with, you know, just me and
oh
my friends.
wow,
Back in college, I studied film a little bit, so
that's
um,
cool.
so I have a sense of it, and I do like to borrow sort of a cinematic sense with in regards to some of the books, like the latest Winslow Hoffner book. It was very cinematic in its transitions, and so I kind of use something called that you see in film called image match. And so we're diving in and out of the past in a way, and so I had to have these visual cues that would sort of like melt the scene into the past. So like Winslow, there's this painting that Winslow is he's reflecting on past moments in his life, that, you know, these significant moments that occurred on a rowboat at several times during the story. And there's this painting of a sort of placid rowboat scene in Keely's Eatery. And so that's our transition into the past. And we do a couple different things like that.
Man, I'm excited to read these books and hear them as well. I'm gonna do both. Man, that's awesome, bro. I've got to ask you why.
Yeah.
'Cause I ask everyone that comes on the show because we talk a lot of paranormal, cryptids,
Mhm.
paranormal, UFOs, and all that crazy stuff. But have you had any paranormal experiences yourself?
I've had my share of paranormal experiences. I haven't
Oh,
seen any sea
brother,
monsters yet,
not
but
yet.
I have had plenty of sort of spiritual encounters.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, can we hear some or all of them? I'd love to hear them
Sure,
all.
sure. There's one story I like to tell. I've told this one before. Um, yeah, I had an encounter with an angel. Once I
Oh
was,
wow.
I was,
Oh,
um,
so just having a drink, it's gone down the wrong hole, as you said that.
no problem.
But that is amazing, man.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I was on the school paper, and just like my main character John Chaplin from the Winslow Hoffner series, I was in journalism too. So I was doing a story on this particular bus program. And so I was interviewing the bus driver and the students on the bus, and I was taking pictures, and it lengthened the amount of time or shortened the amount of time rather, that I needed to catch my bus. And I didn't have a car at the time, and neither of my parents were home, so I needed to catch the bus. And so I was wrapping up the interview, and my backpack was open and things were falling out of it. My recorder fell out of my hand, and the batteries went flying out of it, and I bent down to pick that up, and more stuff fell out of my backpack, and it was just this comedy of errors, and to the point where the bus driver's like, "Are you okay, son?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so I gather up everything finally, awkwardly, and I'm booking it because it is getting late. And so I go down to where my bus normally is in the bus loop. It's not there. I make the full lap. I come all the way back up. I go all the way back down. I can't find it. And now the doors of the buses are starting to close, and I am like rushing, and I'm having a terrible time now. And it's getting worse because the kids are like now climbing out of the small windows of the bus and pointing and laughing at me as I'm running. And I'm like, I gotta catch this, and I'm sweating, and my giant backpack is swamping back and forth as I'm running. And I'm like, this is just the worst day ever. And it was like a small thing, but I'm like, I just look at the sky and I shout, "Angels help me," you know. And then exactly when I say that, this tiny bird appears and it is keeping pace with me exactly, and it's at my eye line. It's like a chickadee, I think. And it's flapping and it looks at me, and I look at it, and after we lock eyes, it takes off ahead and it lands on the giant side view mirror of a bus that I hadn't seen before, because the buses are they're flaked, I guess would be the right verb for it, in a certain way like this. But two of the buses are um front to back like this, and there's one that is hidden behind them. So in the curve of the bus loop, there was one that was like completely invisible before, except for like a small section of the mirror, and the bird landed on that mirror. I was like, oh, and I run through the small space, and then I see my bus number. It's my bus, and
Wow.
and I look at the bird. I say thank you, and then I get on the bus right before the doors close. And
Wow,
so that
man.
that was that was my crazy experience with an angel. Um,
Wow. That's
which I mean,
wild.
there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The fact that the birds, because birds don't do that generally.
no,
That does,
no, it was
wow.
following me. It was
What
it was
sort of
keeping the
bird was
exact
it?
pace. It was a chickadee, yeah.
Chickadee.
I'm pretty sure.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, it was guiding you, and as you've asked for it as well. So I mean,
At the exact moment it comes down, and it's at my eye line, keeping pace with me as I'm running.
yeah,
And then after I acknowledge it, it zooms ahead and
that's
guides me right to it.
wild. What was
Hmm.
your thoughts at that time? I know you obviously you was at school, you was young, but what was your thinking, man? Was you like,
I mean, I just kind of went with it. I was just
yeah?
I was just trying to get on the bus, and
Had you
it
ever
just
experienced anything like that before? Like any spiritual experiences where,
that was probably the funniest one. But I've seen like orbs and stuff, and I've seen people walking the sort of the corner of the eye thing. You turn and then they're gone.
Mhm.
Uh, I saw my great grandfather once walking behind me, and that's actually who I dedicated World of the Orb to. Was my great grandfather, and it was very very interesting. Um,
What
so
happened there, man?
I had never met him, but
Oh, okay.
he had appeared exactly as I had known him from his photographs, and he was a historical fiction novelist. And so he was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
my greatest inspiration when I decided that I wanted to become an author. And I found out that it had been done in my family. And so I heard all these
That's
wonderful stories about him, but I never got to meet him.
that's
Uh,
cool, man. It's in the blood.
yeah, yeah.
Man, see, how did you see? Like, what was that experience? What happened there?
That was just I mean, nothing was really prompted. Nothing really prompted it. It was just I saw him walking behind me with his hands clasped behind his back, and like, looking at me, and when I turned and looked, he was gone. It's just so
Wow.
I've just had a lot of stuff like that.
Was he full bodied? Like he was just
Full
there?
body. Yeah, full body. Yeah.
That's cool.
Hmm.
That's cool, man. I've seen a full bodied apparition. It wasn't my granddad, as far as I know. It could have been a distant
Right.
granddad, maybe, but that's what a cool thing to see. So you'd never met him, you'd just seen pictures and stuff and heard these amazing stuff.
Yeah.
How old was you when that happened?
How old was I? I was a teenager. I don't remember the exact age. It might have been like 15 or something.
And you knew straight away that that was your granddad.
Yeah, I knew immediately. Yeah, I could recognize him. He had a distinct look.
That's wild. But
Hmm.
that's a cool experience.
Yeah, it was cool. So thankfully, the majority of my experiences have been positive, and like, family members seemingly visiting, um and angels and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So how often would you experience something like that, seeing stuff? Is it a regular thing or?
I don't know. I don't know that it's regular. Um, it happens often enough. You know, and I think that that's a it's an interesting thing. People say seeing is believing, but I kind of think that believing is seeing. And that's kind of a theme in my Winslow Hoffner books as well. The characters, when they come to believe, is kind of at the point where they're treated to seeing some of these monsters and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's more of an adventure in those books than a horror, because a lot of times the instinct when you're writing about the unknown is to write about horror,
Hmm.
but in the Winslow Hoffner series it's more about the great unknown.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah,
I love that, man.
yeah,
Positive, good vibes. I
indeed,
love
yeah.
that. Yeah. Man, I agree with what you said. Seeing is believing. Sometimes believing is, yeah, because I think a lot of people, once you've had an experience, especially when you're younger as well, that sort of opens you up to the possibilities. And then you normally have more experiences. That's where I'm at the moment. That's what I think.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
not the first person to say that, but that's how because some people have a lot of experiences, see a lot of things, and then other people don't have any experiences, and they're normally the ones that don't believe it, you know. But when
Hmm.
you've seen something like yourself, and you know that you've seen that, then that's cool, man. That is
Yeah.
cool. So you've always been spiritually open, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. Um,
Any
yeah.
other any other angel experiences? Because that's quite mind blowing, man. That's interesting.
That's the most story worthy one, because it has the most beginning, middle, and end thing. But every once in a while, you'll see an orb, or you'll see a figure,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of my instinct is just like whatever your first instinct of who it is who it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the story I like to tell. I mean, it's it's kind of it's like a normal everyday problem trying to catch a bus, but it's nice that
Yeah.
the intervention can occur for something
Yeah.
as
Something was
small as
looking
that.
out for you there. That
And
is for
and it,
sure.
and it's just funny, too. So yeah.
It's awesome, man. So, what do you think? I'm interested to know what people think is going on with the paranormal, the other side. What are your thoughts? I know nobody really knows. It's a difficult question, but what do you think is happening in the paranormal world? What do you think it all is?
What do I think it all
Yeah, I
is? I
know
don't know.
that's
That's a
difficult.
big question, Tommy.
It's a big question. I know. I'm
I,
sorry.
I I believe in the afterlife.
Mhm.
I believe in that very much. I believe in God, and obviously I believe in angels. Um, so I think it's there. It exists, overlapping our own world, and sometimes we get to see it, and a lot of times it operates invisibly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah, man. That's good answer. That's how I feel as
mhm.
well.
Yeah.
So have you had any experiences with possible, I know you said you've seen orbs, any strange things in the sky, UFOs, stuff like that?
I have not. I had a very funny conversation with a friend of mine once, who it was like midnight, and I was like zoning out on my couch, and he calls me. This was pretty recent, and he says, Mike, are you outside? I'm like, no. I'm on my couch. He's like, go outside. I said, okay. I'm outside. He says, look up. I'm looking up. I don't see anything. And he's like, I just saw a UFO. I'm like, what did you see? And he described it. It was like nothing I had ever heard. But I was like, describe it more. And I'm like typing it in, and I'm in full, journalistic, research mode. And he's like, it was like this. It was definitely out of the atmosphere, but it was huge. It was a line of lights. It was like a chain, and it was like a string. It was moving like a noodle. It was, and I'm looking it up, and then I'm like, all right, I got a picture. I'm sending it to you. Does it look like this? He's like, yeah, that's it. What is that? I'm like, that's Elon Musk.
That's the Starlink.
That's Starlink. That's the Starlink satellite train. But
Ah,
I had not seen it before. I found a video of it. I'm like, yeah, I would have thought that was a UFO too.
yeah, 100%. If you didn't know about that, and then because I've seen it a few times, and you're like, it's a wild thing to see, even though you know it's Elon Musk's Starlink, but it's still. And do you know how many people have sent me pictures of the Starlink? saying,
Yeah.
"What's
Yeah.
this? I've seen a UFO." I've had that so many times, and I'm like, "I'm sorry to
Yeah.
tell you, that's a
There's
Starlink. It is
I
cool. It's still a cool thing to see."
everyone seems to find out by seeing it too. I don't think that there's ever been like a, hey, just so you know, there's going to be a gigantic, light phenomenon in the
Yeah,
sky. You just
yeah.
got to find out for yourself, apparently.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, when what was it the last time I saw it, I went out and I don't know if I was putting the bins out and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm doing interviews during the night and
Mm,
I've took the bins out and I've looked up and the Starlink has just come over and I was like, wow. Even though you know it's not a UFO, it's still a cool thing to see, man.
yeah.
So many people have sent me pictures of it. I've had family members saying, "Tom, look, I saw this last night. What's that?" I'm like, it's a Starlink.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to see it personally, but I got to experience it in a secondhand way, in a funny
Yeah.
way. So, um,
I had to break it to him.
yeah, I don't blame him though. I don't blame him though. I would
Yeah,
have thought the same thing because I didn't know.
100%, 100%, man. Where do you stand with UFOs and things like that? Because it's a
Mm.
big talking
I
point
have
at the
no
moment.
idea. It's not my area of expertise. I
Mhm.
don't think that it's extraterrestrial. Um,
Interesting.
I don't think that it's spacecrafts. I don't think that I
Mhm.
believe in that anymore. Uh,
Okay.
I think I think it could just be something that's here in our realm, or maybe at the most maybe like something interdimensional, but I don't think it's like a ship that's moving through space and coming to check us out. I don't think that, or at least that's at the bottom of my totem pole of possibilities. And
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in this, I
No,
know a
I
lot
don't
about
think
sea
anybody
monsters,
really is.
but I don't have the instinct that it's that they're aliens.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's my personal belief.
Yeah. No, I'm with
Um,
you, man.
I've been talking with Justin from Cryptids of the Corn, has a
Yeah.
very
Love
interesting.
cryptids of the corn.
Yeah, I love that. I love those guys. He has an interesting theory about, atmospheric beasts, and that a lot of these UFOs, what we think are spacecrafts, may be upper atmosphere creatures that are just like super lightweight and that we just
Yeah.
haven't discovered yet. And
Yeah, man.
I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I had a guy on very early on. I think it was episode 19. I had Nick Hayes on the show. He's from the UK and um he made a special camera. I'm not going to do this justice because my science is terrible, but it was a camera that can, it was like, it wasn't infrared. I'm not sure what it was, but say it was infrared. But
Okay.
he was taking pictures and catching these sort of jellyfish like UFOs like in the
Interesting.
sky. And he's got so many pictures, incredible pictures from a camera that he made himself or he was following on someone else's work. And yeah, very interesting, man. And his opinion is very similar to that these things are like a living entity in the sky, possibly. So
It
yeah,
could be.
it could be, man.
Yeah.
So with cryptids, another difficult question. I'm gonna keep throwing the difficult ones in. What do you think now? What do you think? Do you think Bigfoot is out there? What's your thoughts on the cryptids?
Yes, I think Bigfoot.
Dogman,
Dogman,
yes,
I don't know. Dogman might be supernatural, if he's out there, or it's just another type of Bigfoot that happens to have a houndy muzzle. There was an interesting story about I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but the Gugwe up in Canada has had reports of it being either a Sasquatch or a Dogman, and then sort of at the center of that Venn diagram, people say no, it's a Bigfoot, but it has a face like a baboon. And I thought, there we go. That would that
yes,
that would explain more. If it's a primate, that would explain, because the big thing is the thumbs for me. I'm like, how does a dog get thumbs? I don't know how it's possible.
yeah.
Unless it's a demon, then all bets are off.
So where do you stand on Bigfoot? What do you think that is?
Um, I think it's an animal. I mean, I see the Patterson Gimlin film, and it's an excellent film.
Mhm.
And I look at that and I think that's an animal. Same thing with the Freeman footage.
Yeah,
Uh, people have different theories about it being interdimensional and stuff, and I don't know enough about that. theory to comment on, but I don't think it's that unusual looking of a creature. Something like a I don't know, something like the Snallygaster would be make more sense as an interdimensional thing because it's so weird, but or
Yeah.
Mothman for that matter.
Yeah.
But Bigfoot, there's plenty of known animals from back in time that have that sort of shape,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's too unusual to believe that some of those might still be around, a relic hominid.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Because what I find is that what I find interesting is that they're in sort of every culture,
Yeah,
in every country around the world. Like everyone's got their own version of a Bigfoot. But they're predominantly the same thing, a hairy ape-like giant, So
exactly.
they're
Exactly.
out there for me, man. That's for sure.
I think they're out there. I think they're out there for sure.
Yeah. What about Nessie? I know you're big on the water cryptids.
Nessie's tougher because it's so much more singular. I think if it were there's some a fascinating history with Nessie. I mean, as far as the first ever sighting was um Saint Columba, and it was kind of a spiritual encounter where it was like treated almost um like in that fashion, like be gone from here, you evil presence kind of thing. And so people have been seeing something, and it could be something more known. It could be like a supermassive eel is kind of the current
Mhm.
theory, which isn't bad. I like the long neck seal theory a lot. That's the um, Bernard Wavelman's theory, and that's the direction that I went with my latest book, Winslow Hoffner's High Sailing Adventures. That's our centerpiece of the cover of that book here.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Even though she's green and mossy, this is a still just a seal just stretched out,
Yeah.
and things like that existed in the fossil record as well,
Yep.
and that I also the reason that I was drawn to that version of the monster was because of sightings involving road crossings. That it was out of water for some time and sort of flumped across the road. And I thought you need to be like a seal or something to have
Yes.
that level of alacrity on land. So
Yeah, man. A lot of people claim to see a Loch Ness type creature that has been seen walking out. So that is very interesting as well.
yeah,
I spoke to, have you heard of Andy McGrath?
I have not.
So he's a cool guy. He's based in the UK and he's written books on cryptids in the UK, but I think he's stretched all around the world.
Cool.
But one of his theories was that he said to me that he thinks the Loch Ness could possibly come out of the water
Right.
and travel around on land as
Yeah,
well. So that would,
I think so. I mean, there have been sightings of that.
yeah,
So
interesting, man. I
yeah,
love it. I love it, brother. I'm very excited to get into the books, man, because
sure.
cryptids are one of my favorite things in the world. So I am very
Yeah, me
interested.
too.
It's been super interesting talking to you tonight, man. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on,
you.
sharing your book, sharing your personal paranormal experiences as well. Thank you very much, man. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Definitely. You can find me on Instagram at mthompson_books. And you can find all my other social media and all of my books and upcoming events on michaelthompsonbooks.com. In person, I'm going to be very soon at Monster Fest in Canton, Ohio. That's at the end of this month. That is June, what is it, 28th? June 28th, I think. Um, right at the last Saturday of the month, whatever it is. And then on September 14th, I'm going to be at Cryptid Fest, Massachusetts. And that's a show that's being put on by my friend Jessica from Cryptid Bits with General Tidbits. And I am a featured speaker there. I'm going to be presenting a show called Cryptids and Storytelling, where I talk about a select few of the cryptids that I adapted for a cohesive narrative in my Winslow Hoffner series. And I'm going to talk about how I did that and the speculative biology and all that stuff. That's going to be really fun. It's a show I made for the Library of Congress for their paranormal forum.
Oh,
And
awesome, man.
so now I'm taking it on the road to these different cryptid shows. And you can
That's
find all
great.
my other shows there on the upcoming events page, right on the front of my news and events page of michaelthompsonbooks.com.
Awesome stuff, brother. I will share the links in the show description. Man, I'd love to come to those events. I'm coming. I'm coming over.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do
That would be
it.
amazing. Brother, thank you so much. Stay in
Thank you.
touch. Would love to talk to you again more. I'm going to get the books. Everyone go out and get the books because they're absolutely awesome. Looking forward to the films as well in the future.
Yes, me too. I can't wait.
Brother, thank you so much, man. And thank you so much for listening, guys. If you enjoyed the show, share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. We'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and we'll see you soon. Michael, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.